Hello, seekers. This is Wildly of Wildly Tarot here, and I am so excited about this conversation. We are going to be diving in together today around the archetype of the Fool card with one of my nearest and dearest, Jenny Lee of the Sacred Wholeness. Jenny is one of the most inspiring people that I have in my close circle, and I am just really excited to introduce her to all of you today. So, Jenny, can you just share with me, like, what's alive for you today? How are you feeling in your mind, body, heart, and soul?
Hmm. Yeah. What's alive is there's a flow similar to like a breath practice where there's a pauseless energetic flow where things are meeting each other at the next pivotal moment, and it feels really beautiful to be in a dense, maybe not dense, in a dense uh flow.
A
And it's
death dance.
a dense dance, yeah, just like dancing around bricks. Um, yeah, so that's been really alive, feeling really, really inspired to feel my own spiritual path, my own like elder and training come more and more online
Mm.
in ways that I've always been aware of and ready to engage. And yet timing is what it is, and it just feels like it's here. It's here now. It's alive now. And interestingly, well, you can understand this because you're someone that knows me, but for anybody else, I'm pretty windy, pretty wild. In the past few weeks, there's been a quieting, a slowing.
Mm.
Just my energy's not so like the jokester, the clown, or
Mm.
many other things that I love and adore about myself. But yeah, I've been having less words, less um, excitement about all of my favorite distractions that I usually have.
Mm.
And so, yeah, it feels like this arriving to an initiation point.
Oof.
And yeah.
Oof. Initiation. I love that word. I love that word. And I love how integral that word is with this archetype of the fool, the threshold that we must leap across, the initiations we have to say yes to over and over and over again if we are to continue evolving on our path.
Oh, yeah. There's so many different kinds of initiations, and we all go through them. And, it's a true grief to live in an under-initiated world, or I guess the initiations are there, but they're under acknowledged,
Right.
and especially on like the receiving end of these initiations where ideally and traditionally the community would receive you as a new and changed person. And I
Mm.
think people can initiate the beginning of a change, but then to also show up in the receptivity of like, I honor you as a new and different changed person.
Mm.
um yeah, more of that. We need more of that.
So powerful. And what I'm hearing in your words is that we also live in a culture where these initiations happen to us instead of being initiated by us and by our circumstances by choice, where we step
Yes.
into it.
Yeah, it's almost like life is laden, and life itself isn't being born is an initiation, right?
Mm.
And it's almost like that if life is going to have all these different initiations, and we can either be blind to it, or we can be like, ah, yes, these things are happening, and let's engage with ritual and ceremony and intention around them. Or you can look back and be like, oh wow, all these things like marriage, divorce, childbearing, quitting a job, going through your own self-worth trial and error period. I mean, all these things are just already, they're already woven into the fabric of life.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the kind of people that are the initiation carriers and like the wisdom carriers are just talking about it and holding space for those that's already happening.
Mm. Yes, yes. I love that word that you spoke about ritual, and it sparks in me a curiosity around your work, because I look at your work as a very sacred, ritualized type of experience. So I'm curious if you could share with my people here, what do you do, and how is that a ritual in your
Mm,
experience?
yeah, thank you for asking. And it's, I mean, yeah, it's a perfect day to really feel like the profundity and weight of like it's getting more serious and more hilarious at the same time. I'm like, oh, this life thing is a big deal, and like let's not take it seriously, but like let's um so I've been doing massage therapy and body work for almost 12 years now.
Mhm.
And that's been the majority of my exploration in my relationship with other people, with other people's pain, with other people's vulnerabilities and intimacies. And then a couple years ago, I studied integrative nutrition. Um, I have my own healing journey with eating disorder and just various forms of addiction and deep seated inherited self hatred. And so I was called towards nutrition as a way to heal that which I had healed and then very quickly realized that I don't give a shit about broccoli. Like micronutrients, macronutrients, it's like I'm very much like my heart. I don't know if you have to edit these things, but my heart and my spirit are very much more curious and more interested and more devoted to like what is the soul, what is the pattern, what is the belief, what is this like the inner workings that are influencing our outer decisions.
Mm.
And I didn't know what to do with that, and I didn't want to go to school and get training in like clinical mental health because that also doesn't seem like the way. My partner is a psychotherapist, and he's just like, it's probably not the way for you.
Yeah.
um and so over the past like year, there's been a coalescing and creative dancing with all these different offerings that I have, and then entered vocal empowerment,
Mm.
which was really called, the community just kind of asked that of me. And then I showed up for it, and it was a home run, is a home run. And so then there's massage therapy, nutrition, health coaching, vocal empowerment, and all of that is starting to come in closer to the heart. And like what are the core themes, and empowerment and embodiment, like where have you lost your power and where have you lost touch with your body. And
Yeah.
I feel like those are the two biggest griefs that I see, and just touching people for so long. And especially I can, my ego can be like, oh, I'm good at what I do. Trust me, I'm good at what I do. And there's only so much that my physical exertion over someone's body that is fairly passive can actually do. There's only so much change I can make. And so the conversation just kept getting broader and wider and more integral and more interesting and more nuanced. And the most recent landing is this offering called the Temple of Belonging, which is, yeah, to take these pieces and then kind of offer them in more of a like a coherent um, space, that like the emphasis on the space and the container, and
Mhm.
to bring in sacredness, to bring in ritual, to bring in wholeness, to bring in different layers of releasing, different layers of inquiry, different layers of compassion, to talk to the whole person. That's really what I want to talk to anyways. But I think for a lot of healer people, we've kind of compromised what we really want for the doorway, for the thing that we think is the doorway. Like, oh, I have an herbalist friend, and it's like, herbalism is the doorway to get people in. But then what we actually want to talk about is like self actualization and how we're just connected in oneness with the earth.
Mm.
And just thinking about like, all hail the doorways.
Right.
And yeah, what is the deeper conversation that all of our spirits want to be having with each other?
Mm.
And pick your adventure, as the fool would say. The We're all going to the inner gold guide, wise counsel, fire, hearth thing.
Mhm.
And there's 10,000 ways to get there,
Right,
you know?
right. Yes, yes. What I'm hearing you say, and what I want to reflect back to you, is that it feels like all of these modalities, all of this work, it's really personal liberation work. That's what I've come to
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
my own path, is that I'm here to be of service to liberate myself and all other beings in the process. And what I'm hearing you say is that you're expanding your work to collect in and gather all of these wonderful tools that you've been amassing on your own journey to create this temple of belonging where someone can step in and access whichever ones really meet their needs. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think, I'm sure you agree with it. Well, yeah, you have also quite the bag of tricks, right? And sometimes people don't even know what they need because they haven't had the access or they've never experienced something. So it is an offering,
Mm,
um, whatever I'm just gonna say it. It's kind of like non-consensual, but like, no, we're doing all of these things. And if you just want a bodywork session, great. But if you want, like, let's just do all of it and see what lands and see what doesn't land, take what serves, leave what doesn't. Like
mm,
that kind of an experience. And yeah, it's new and it's been fun to see how different people respond to it in different ways, and what a fun ride to just keep showing up for something that I feel like is such a good healing exploration.
mm.
It's not even like a tool, it's just an experience. And I feel part of the day flowing all into the all of everything today. Something that just came through in my prior session was that there's the mind that wants to know things, and yet like life is not about knowing, it's about experiencing. And so creating more experiences, healing experiences versus healing modalities or healing concepts or healing practices that like the mind wants to contextualize and be like, oh, I got it, I can understand this, versus just come and feel what healing or what diving deeper into your own psyche or your own body can feel like.
Mm.
And then of course everyone, most people, is the knowing really wants to be involved and acknowledged, which doesn't always get to happen.
Right, right. So
um,
it's opening a portal for that, maybe that first taste of really getting to the essence of their inner knowing.
mhm.
Hmm.
That's the plan.
Yeah, that's definitely fool medicine right there, where it's like
It really is.
the plan is to not have a plan, but to be present in what is and follow our feet through the experience and
Yeah.
see what happens on the other side, right?
Yes.
Yep. So I'm curious next, most of the people I know who are in the healer category, who help support and serve others, they often arrive to this place because they have moved through some really challenging times and sticky opportunities of their own. And I'm wondering if you have some stories or something you'd like to share where you have skillfully navigated these tough spots that might be relatable to my people.
Hmm. Skillfully, you say? Skillfully.
As far as the fool goes.
Yeah, yeah, like skillfully as in like I left a giant wake of mess behind me, but I survived. Um,
You, that works too,
yeah,
because you're still here. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and just like the expectation of what skillfully even is or means. I love being like, pretty sure that was skill, but yeah, to answer your question, yeah, I think the biggest life energy that I've had to navigate was, yeah, almost a decade of a severe, severe eating disorder.
Mhm.
And yeah, like the further my healing goes, the more I can look back, and I've spoken to it. I've helped other people with this idea of food and nutrition and like body image, and but at the core of it, it's truly just like unbound self-hatred, and yeah, and it's a big deal that is systemic in our culture, our population here in America and other more privileged countries as well, I think, where, like, yeah, how do you skillfully recover from like hating yourself?
Right.
And the past year or so, I've gotten really intimate and allowed myself to fully grieve. And I think the skill came from fully, fully being able to feel the thing which I was unable to feel, which was why I had an addictive eating disorder, which was just heartbreaking, unbearable grief that my body wasn't even safe from me. My body wasn't safe in the world. My heart wasn't safe from me, and every single woman that I've ever spoken to about my healing journey is like, oh yeah, me too. Maybe for a month, maybe for years, like, but this overeating, undereating, emotional eating, self-hating, judging yourself every time you catch your body in the window. I mean, it's just like I don't know how many times a day, the average person is truly judging and shaming and saying the worst of the worst to themselves in their head and their minds.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like it's fairly constant thing for most people, for a lot of people. And so I think this skill came as a hot mess of grief. And through like fully grieving the loss of my 20s, the loss of my health, the loss of relationships, all that can come with, a debilitating addictive disorder. Oh God, there was just and is so much compassion on the other side once the grief can be fully felt. Like the wailing and the crying and the sobbing and like holding my body, being like, how could I ever? Oh my God. And then the grief just like rolls into I'm holding myself in ways that I've never held myself. And I'm present with myself in ways that I've never been present with myself. And it feels like that there's a fear to dive into how much grief is actually there. And I get that, I avoided it for many years. And I think, yeah, the willingness, maybe the exhaustion or the privilege that I've been able to be guided by people like you and other strong spiritual brothers and sisters that have evolved me on my path to create a welcome for the grief that seemed just so big that I couldn't even, like, if I jumped into that river, I would never come out,
Mm.
you know?
Yeah.
And then the cosmic joke is like, well, that's also the river of love. So welcome to that part of your life. Same river.
Uh-huh. So the more that you can tap into that grief and really allow yourself to feel the full spectrum, the more you're able to access the whole spectrum, which includes joy and bliss and
Yeah.
acceptance and all of the things.
Yeah. Yeah. Negating a feeling is negating all feelings,
Yeah.
and it takes a certain level of bravery and I think a really attuned level of support to if that's a terrain that is not native to you, or to anybody. And I don't know if I had skill as much as I had a willingness and called in beings that had more skill or that had more experience or that were just like, hey baby, this is gonna suck and it's gonna be so worth it. Yeah, it's gonna feel like you're drowning, but you won't. And if you do, you'll come back again. It's fine.
Mhm. I don't know. I would call that skillful because when we know we are outside of our zone of genius and we look for support, that's quite wise, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd love to hear you riff for a minute because I knew you first as a musician and poet and songwriter. And I'm really curious, of all, the more that you tell this story about your addictive eating disorder, I'm curious if the use of the voice in telling that story has been super supportive in your healing process with that piece of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And also, how is the voice woven into this idea of becoming an empowered woman? I see this a lot in my clients where it's very difficult for them to access their truth, speak about their
Yeah.
boundaries, literally just use their voice in order to take up space. So I'm
Yeah.
curious how if you would like to riff on that for a minute.
Yeah, thanks for asking. I'm hoping that something really sweet lines all up because in my heart I can see the connection so clearly, but I don't always have the articulation for it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um First off, I would never have healed if I wouldn't have started speaking about it. So there is that piece where it's like can't fix the problem unless you admit there's a problem,
Right.
kind of a thing. But even beyond that, the more that I shared my story, then my story became our story.
Mm-hmm.
I felt so much less alone. And um, I think that's when traumas or anything negative, the non-preferable experiences, addictions, all these things become more powerful is when they're kept in the closet and they start to like rot and fester. And so speaking it was just humbling, which is like, yes, more humbling. That's definitely one way to make some change in your life, is to just lay it down. I'm not here to be cool. I'm here to live, you know?
Yeah.
And so speaking about it connected me to the pain that I was experiencing an individual part of. And like Tonglen meditation, like you breathe in the pain and you exhale like golden loving light. And I love that because it helps unify like our pain, our struggle, our self-hatred. It can become like mine really fast. And it very much feels like mine. And yet I'm coming to this, around the bend, but we're all experiencing pain. We're all experiencing self-judgment. We're all experiencing traumas. And to speak about it is not only like a way to have compassion for yourself so that you're like, hey, I'm actually not okay. I'm actually don't have anything, I don't have my shit together. I'm just here and I'm hurting and I want you to know. Like that is one of the most amazing forms of intimacy that is out there. It's like people think that intimacy is this sweet, sensual thing, which it is, but to be willing to be seen in the parts of you that aren't, you know, collectively agreed upon as good is hot. It's amazing. And so I think the stigma and my inability to be with that high sensation slowly dissipated the more I could speak about it. And then I felt connected to everybody because it was literally everybody that I talked to that was like, yeah, totally. I've had, yeah, it's a thing. It's an under talked about thing. And I feel like renegade-ish around that being like, how come we're not talking about this at women's gatherings and women's festivals? Like, what? Anyways, yeah, and as a singer, I still actually have not written a song about this specific healing journey, and I feel it. I feel it coming.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
It's like that's the song that took 10 years to write. But similar to, I think, in like the vocal empowerment, what I've noticed is people don't want to look bad. People don't want to say the wrong thing. And there's this over focus on getting it right and being good versus the higher obedience and devotion to the self, which I think should be what's my truth and why is that not just as valuable as what these people think about me. And I can see like how that concept and that pattern of thinking has trickled down into you know, self-worth and body issues, it's like, well, other people think I should be like this, and so that is now more important than
Mm.
what I think I should be like, or what I think I should sound like, or what I want to say. And we don't, most of us didn't grow up in a world where our voice and our truth and our power was celebrated, let alone acknowledged.
Right.
It's like, shh, everywhere you go, shh.
Mm.
And that's a lot to unravel, I feel like. And so I think the journey to speaking your truth, owning your truth, being comfortable with what comes out is letting go of the idea of being good,
Yeah.
and letting go of the idea that like your worth and your value is in the hands of other people. Um, Carolyn Meese talks about the throat being like the seat of choice
Mm.
and also like the seat of addiction. And there's so much, but it's the only energy center that I know of in like the chakra system that is like in relationship with the outside world, which gives it a lot of consequence. There's like a very consequential nature to it because now I say something and then all you guys heard about it, I can feel something and think something and embody something and nobody could know. But now that I'm speaking, there's this feedback, there's this data coming back, we're being mirrored, we're creating worlds, we're changing the world with our words.
Yeah.
And so there is this like deep consequential nature to the voice. I mean, and first off, just like it's a big deal to have a voice in the world, especially with the internet, where things live forever and things are recorded and interpreted in ways that you don't get to control and all these things. And and that's a hard thing. That's a hard thing,
Mm.
but I think, I don't know, like with my clients, it's more of like a practice. There's like micro truthing. I'll have people do like a little bit of truthings a day, just so that they can see that them telling the truth does not draw a direct line to them like being unloved
Right.
or
Right.
being unworthy or being unliked.
Mm.
And I
Yeah.
had someone ask me how I can be so confident and how I can just like not care. And I'm like, because I've done everything wrong. I have like botched shows, I've ruined relationships, I have said all the wrong things to everybody at least a handful of times. You know what I mean? Like I've done it wrong. And so then now the fear, the thing that I'm afraid of has already happened. Now what? Right?
Mm.
Remember you speaking to that with your super awesome witchy session with a gal that I can't remember her name. But it's that thing, is like we're so afraid to speak because dot dot dot. So then, inviting in the energy of like, oh well, let's look at dot dot dot. How bad are these dot dot dots? And are you willing to keep swallowing your truth for these things that one might just inevitably happen either way?
Mm.
Yeah. It's like,
Ah.
mhm. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
my mind is sparking with so many things, and you've brought it back around to the full archetype right there with that. Like just being willing to continue stepping into great mystery, stepping into the unknown, because so what if the worst happens? Like,
Yeah.
so what if the worst happens? Mm. So I heard you describing what the picture that I received as you were speaking was that a lot of people in our culture, and in particular women, are really working with an autoimmune disease in the emotional body, where we're like
Ooh,
attacking
ouch.
ourselves
Ah,
over and over again and looking to the
that one down.
outside to fix us. Are you taking that? You quoting
Yeah,
that?
what about you?
And I just I love your visual of titrating the information and doing that micro truthing, you know,
Yeah.
preparing the emotional body to find that edge and hold it in the discomfort,
Yeah.
and then be like, "Oh, okay, I survived. Okay, I can push my edge a little bit further. I can
Yes.
take up a little more space."
Yes.
Right.
Well, then you don't overwhelm the system.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, it's a very strong operating system to where, once again, I'm just going to like say everybody
Mm-hmm.
is worried at some level of their being about getting it wrong, about making somebody mad, about there's a lot to be afraid of, and there's a lot that we're told we should be afraid of. And
Mm-hmm.
if you just throw somebody into being like, you know what, F that, just tell them how you really feel, then you have like explosive fights and people that are blaming other people. And I think with the titrating sensation, hopefully, ideally, there's more of like the self responsibility that can come into to on the same time and come with that hand in hand versus, I mean, pick your path, right? If you want to explode and sing a song about the thing that you hate the most and then, just go for it, that's awesome. But it's a trauma response. And I think we've talked about this before, but fawning as a trauma response, it's like there's fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. And the fawn just like doesn't get talked about anymore because everybody's doing it.
Right.
And it's that like people pleasing that not only we've inherited, we have been given this in our cultures and our nurturance and our naturance, and it's just everywhere. And some type of childhood trauma exists in all children, where there was this sensation at some point where if I say the wrong thing or if I do the wrong thing, my mother or father or caretaker is going to be mad at me. And when they're mad at me, I feel unloved. And if I feel unloved, I might die.
Right.
So there's like this very visceral somatic reality. And there's a very long, windy thread that goes back to like all of our little selves that for sure has every reason to believe that being wrong or saying the wrong thing, being a little too loud and having to be like, sorry about that, or whatever the voice wants to express that seems scary.
Yeah.
The body is the thing that's like, no, this is not okay, which is why I think a lot of people feel that tension in their chest and their throat. It's a physical response, and it's the physical body that holds the memory of trauma. The mind is like, no, I'm over that. We're good. No big deal. But then it's like, the throat's like, it's a big deal. It's definitely a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we've been raised in this capitalist patriarchal culture that somehow shames us for being human and doesn't allow the space and permission to just make mistakes.
Mm,
I even heard it in your languaging earlier in this interview where you said, I've done it all wrong. And I kind of wanted to say, you did it maybe in ways you don't prefer, but right? Like, what is wrong? What is
right.
wrong? And what is right? It's all determined by this culture of made up stuff
Yeah.
that, like, somehow has decided what politeness means and what people's roles are. It's the programming that you were
Yeah.
speaking about.
Totally.
Yeah, yeah. Beautiful. I just
Mhm.
heard in a podcast with Elizabeth Gilbert, and the phrase that's coming up to me that she said was that it's such a privilege, particularly for women, to actually have access to a public voice.
Mm,
And I'm hearing that a lot in your words and in this vocal empowerment work that you're doing. That to have a public voice, meaning to have a voice that is not kept intimately, but is gifted into the emergent conversation of our communities, is a relatively new thing
yeah.
for women on mass scale.
Yes.
What do you think about that?
Totally. And I think that plays into like the maybe the difference for men and women that are learning how to empower their voice. I think maybe I've commonly seen more women have a struggle to engage that part of their power and that part of their energy and that part of their body.
Hmm.
And thinking back that like women's bodies used to be property. Women's bodies have not been sovereign and free for a long time. And so there is, in my mind, just like an increased level of compassion and care as these stories are being changed and as people are taking back, their power of choice their power of expression, their power of consequence potentially, you know that it's a big deal. And it's a really deep process. And what I witnessed is that, like, someone will come to me because they want more confidence with their singing voice. And then 2 months into us working together, her and her partner split up, you know, because then she realized that she wasn't speaking her truth in that relationship. And then she moved, and there's just like,
Yep.
it's it is this it's this bridge between all of the energy bodies and all of the body energy bodies, and it has a huge job, and it's highly unprotected, and there's all sorts of tension that can build there. And then when you start being with it and feeling how good it feels to speak your truth, then it's like this domino effect that I think, it can change people's lives
Yep.
for sure.
Yep.
And not speaking your truth in one relationship probably means you're not speaking your truth in most of your relationships, including the one to yourself.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Totally. And I'm also being reminded that we're doing this interview and it's Pride Month also, and Indigenous Peoples Month, and I want to also call in and create space and step away a little bit from the duality of male and female, although that is true, but also just in our collective society, how there are these groups whose public voices have been, squashed and oppressed
Yeah.
for lifetimes, many generations, and are now slowly beginning to have their foot in the door with the public conversation. So, this work that you're doing is so critical in giving permission to everyone to be able to speak their truth. And also, what I'm hearing you say with regards to this fool archetype is that you're not telling them it's going to be easy. Like
No.
when
Yeah.
we start speaking our truth, sometimes shit happens. The puzzle pieces get shooken up and they have to like get rearranged in a new alignment.
Yeah. And it is that energy of, there's like a willingness. I feel like that full energy, like there's a willingness to be like, okay, we gotta go. I hope I have everything I need. I certainly probably don't. And really hope that there's a guide or mentor or loving presence somewhere along the way. And they're not going to be there the whole time. And yeah, I just feel like you almost have to be half foolish, because there's no promise, there's no safety, there's no guarantee, there's none of these things on anyone's healing journey or a self actualization journey that, yeah, there's no signs, there's no sales pitch. It's like, this is gonna be awesome, dude. Come on, it's gonna be great. We got cocktails and cheese. It's like, yeah, you're gonna be undone, and then you're gonna be undone, and then you're gonna be undone. And then you're still gonna have to learn how to have compassion for yourself in that process. And then you might have to go away for a while. And then you're like, and yeah, I mean, just I am forever humbled by all of the people that are walking in their truth, that are walking in their power, and that are choosing to not sacrifice their truth of sexuality, their truth of spiritual preference, their truth with politics and socioeconomics. There are all of these things that are people, I more and more at least see the radical bravery. And I think for some people, yeah, I just really want to be present with like how brave that really is,
Mm.
how radical that really, really is. We can talk and holler and protest all we want, but to truly live your life in alignment with what is true for you at the expense of many things, I'm sure.
Yep.
I mean, that's a big thing.
Yeah.
And the more that we are seeing people that are doing that, the more we like can support and permission and guide other people that are like, I don't know what you're doing, but I want to do that. And you're like, okay, come on, it's go time.
Yeah.
Probably take a nap.
Mm-hmm. Right. Being the lead, really being the leader of your own life, and that lights the path for others to step into that empowered place as well.
Yeah. Yeah, there is like, I don't know, yeah, with the Fool, there is like this self-leadership, this self-guiding. It seems like a solo mission. There seems like they are not responsible for much other than their own journey towards their own heart,
Mm,
you know? I
yep.
mean, maybe.
No, I feel that that's totally true. I'm curious, what do you love, really love about the Fool archetype? What is endearing to you about it?
The OCD to just be excited about everything all the time.
That is fun. Yeah.
Oh, what is that over there? Oh my God, what is that over there? I don't know what that is, but I like it.
Uh-huh.
Um, yeah, I like that energy. I
Yeah.
think it plays with like the not logical, and I like the pattern. It feels like a pattern breaker to like
Mhm.
logic and safety and security and a lot of the things that have built the world that we're living in. And
Yep.
the fool's like, I don't care. There's this like shiny object over here, and I know I'm at work, but I'm gonna go over here and just look at it. And there's kind of this like innocence that's also really um powerful.
Yeah.
Um yeah, so I mean that I it can be exhausting, and I'm aware of that in my own life and in life in general.
Mhm.
I really enjoy um there's an openness. There's really just an openness, and we lived in a very closed off world. And so that openness can lead to all kinds of other things, but it's yeah, I think it's really sweet.
Mm. I'm curious what you think the Fool would smell like or taste like, or how would the Fool move if the Fool was this person that you were with or
Mhm.
thing?
I just like habitually want to go to like the stinky houseless person with the backpack on and I don't think that's what it is. I think there's a modern day archetype for the fool,
Yeah.
you know? Um, yeah, here I am. No, I'm just kidding.
Welcome.
What am I wearing? What do I smell like? No, I don't know what they would smell like. Maybe they'd smell like campfire.
Mm,
Someone that's comfortable sitting outside in contemplation around a fire.
mhm.
Um, I think a lot of like Sagittarius qualities of wanting to adventure, wanting to go, wanting to hunt and share the message. But in the idea of like sharing the message, you're actually like on your own journey. The message is just kind of like the face of it or the cover up.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think in this day and age, the fools of the world. hmm, I think are a lot of like the artists, the people that are taking the data in, especially like now more than ever, the past like year, are taking in this data. Everybody's had a course correction, so almost everybody must be on the fool's path journey in some way
Mhm.
of like, let's try this again. And there's like a recalibration and some loss and some grief for sure. And I think the fool is all of those who are like, awesome. Okay, cool. The world changed forever. Everything feels different. And I'm going to be able to write a song about it and maybe see what the gold in this shadow of time was.
Mm.
And that feels like a win, to have that mentality of like, okay, we're just going to go back on the path again. I love the path. Path is my friend. Instead of the many, many, many people that are really grabbing and grasping onto normalcy or unable to find change and surrender in their own life. I
Yeah.
think the fool is somebody that, yeah, embraces surrender. And surrender and, well, how someone said this, maybe it was you, that like surrender and giving up are not the same thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Mhm.
love that. And that's like surrender feels like, you know, a huge part of my life's purpose and path. And I think to weave in like surrender would be an empowered place. It's a place of choice versus, just like the screw it, let's just toss it all in the air and just see what happens. I think that's often like the shadow side of the fool or something, that is not the total picture of what this archetype has to offer.
Ooh, ooh, that's juicy. Yes, yes. Mm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And in your life right now, is there another archetype in the tarot that you are hoping to invite more of in?
Hermit.
Hermit. Do
The hermit.
tell.
Um, I've been diving into my gene keys a lot, and I have one of my unconscious lines is the 3 line, which is or the 2 line. I don't even know. It's the hermit,
Uh-huh.
and I've lived a very, 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 very extroverted social life,
Mm.
and as this like devotional, spiritual future elder path is like awakening in me, I'm feeling that fall off like very rapidly, and um, yeah, I'm just really nourished by kind of like what is. I feel like I've lived so much of my life with this like hunger. Like the more salty stuff you eat, the more salt you want.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I'm not like craving the salt anymore. Most of the time.
Yeah. Ooh,
And-
I love that visual. So much. Mm. Oh, I'm feeling so nourished by this conversation. Yes.
Mm,
I would love if you would like to take a moment to invite my people into any of your work, your projects, how they might be able to find you to work with you.
mm. Telepathy. Way. Just think of me and I'll be there. Yeah, I love you so much, and I love having these conversations with you, and I'm just really excited for all these conversations to be shared with the world.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of magic humans out there having some of the most profound conversations around the dinner table, and you're like, wait a minute, is anybody taking notes? Should we tell people about this?
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I'm just really excited for the world to get to know your community and your heart and all this juice in a deeper way. And I'm really grateful to be here.
Mm,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
People can find me at thesacredwholeness.com. I have in-person offices in White Salmon, Washington and Portland, Oregon. And I do Zoom for what is currently vocal empowerment and like integral health coaching, which is basically empowerment and embodiment and self-love and joy and grief and compassionate inquiry, like all snowballed into one conversational safe space for people to just be like, what's going on?
Right.
Why is it going on? Let's love it and see what happens. So those are offered remotely. And then there will be some type of empowerment, embodiment, breath, magic the gathering. We should just call it that. Can you imagine we put out an invite for Magic the Gathering, an in-person half-day workshop, and what kind of people it would come? And they
There
would be so
would be
disappointed.
costumes. There would be costumes.
Yeah, and we're like, actually, we're going to talk about the soul and tarot and embodiment and breath, and they're like, so are we playing with our swords or not? But yeah, there'll be if people want to sign up to my newsletter on the website, I can keep people updated for like in-person workshops and events that will be hosted here at the property that I am stewarding. And yeah, I also will have music available on there too. So thanks,
Awesome.
thanks the wild Aquarius world for the internet.
Yeah, I want to drop in a seed for the Temple of Belonging because it is
Yes.
an amazing, amazing experiential service that I think just about anyone could benefit from.
Yeah, yeah, truly. Especially people that are like maybe new to ritual and new to ceremony space and maybe have had a lot of massage and physical body work and are hearing the call to go a little bit deeper or to
Mm,
explore different areas, different your physical body, your emotional body, your spiritual body, your energetic bodies. I think it's could still be termed like body work if you're including all the different bodies that we inhabit. And so I think at this phase, it's particularly potent for people that are really curious and want to go deeper and yeah, explore and just receive.
mm.
Yeah.
Up on the fool's journey with you.
Yeah, come on in the fool's den.
Oh, Jenny, thank you so, so much for sharing space with me. I feel like this was so good. We're going to have to do it again about a new topic
Oh,
next time.
yeah.
And other than that, I love you so, so much.
I love you too. Thank you. Thank you.
Hmm. Bye bye.